to the fighting show. We're breaking down Inception, specifically the infamous hallway fight scene with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Lots of rolling going around. Let's check it out. How's it going? It's your host, Iffy here, and today I have Ed Monahan, head of Ekata Training Center out in Valencia, California, and professor at UCLA for combat for film and television. How do you go from being a martial artist and you're like, I'm gonna be a professor as well?
I've got 7 black belts in different martial arts. My primary emphasis is in Jeet Kune Do, which is Bruce Lee's art.
So you're the perfect person to talk to about a fight scene as intense as this. We have Arthur, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, in a hand-to-hand combat in a dream that's within a dream. Then the dream level above the one that Arthur is in, they're in a car chase where they get knocked off the road and the van is tumbling. So now their world is tumbling.
It's a very interesting scene. There's a lot of off balancing and throwing. So it's not about a lot of fancy moves. It's about who can get the best position the fastest and using a lot of the environment. You'll see the use of a phone to be able to smack the other guy, and they're both trying to get the gun. There's a high degree of adaptability to this. And you see jiu-jitsu as one of the practical aspects in this scene.
Let's kind of zero in on the scenes and break it down. Where Arthur falls into the hotel room from the hallway, what are some techniques that we're seeing there?
Well, what you see initially is Arthur ends up getting on top, and he's in a mounted position, getting ready to strike. And then the other stuntman is basically just rolling him off using a technique that the equivalent in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu would be a simple sweep. After that, you see them shifting, being able to stand up because they begin to get their balance, and then they would rotate back where the other attacker is on top of him, grabbing a hold of his shirt, and then he applies a reverse wrist lock that you see in arts like Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, Hapkido, Chin-Na, where we go after the small joint structure.
What would be the difference between going for the short joint structures and the large joint structures?
Essentially, when you look at the small joints, you're looking at fingers, wrists. When you look at the large joint structures, you're looking at going after the shoulder, the elbow, hip, knee. So in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you'll see many of the submission techniques taking somebody into an armbar, going for a choke. In the small joint locking structures that you see out of the Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, you see a lot of manipulation and control being used from taking the short joint and being able to control the fingers, the wrists, which is largely pain compliance.
Yeah, it hurts.
It does.
It seems like, the character Arthur has to have had some kind of military experience the way that he's fighting his hand-to-hand combat.
The way in which he handles the weapons. It would point to some type of military or law enforcement training. What we see in military applications is training in different types of environment, so the soldier can adapt. For instance, ranger training in the Army, my son's a ranger, and what they go through is essentially 3 phases in 3 different environments where they're focusing essentially in forests, then they'll move them into mountains, and then they'll move them into swamps. Although one that rotates continually, that's probably a little bit off the charts of what they're actually dealing with in the military now.
A lot of martial arts comes from having to adapt to your surroundings. So do you feel there could be a specific martial art created for a tumbling world like this?
Yeah, we see instances of this throughout history. One of the theories is that Wing Chun was derived in an environment that required stable footing. Unstable footing necessitates that one doesn't do a lot of jumping and flying and kicking, but they focus on work with the upper extremities and kicks that go below the waist. And when you get into what Bruce Lee formulated with Jeet Kune Do, his whole premise is adaptation, being able to really conform to the needs of the environment, conform to the needs of the individual circumstance. What are your assets? What are your liabilities? And then how do you bring them all into play, and where what you choose is going to actually work.
Okay, so it seems like if you're training for adaptability, nothing can really throw you off. Like Sugar Free says, if you stay ready,
you don't gotta get ready in a real way.
No question about it.
And where can people find you?
You can go to our website, ekata.net, EKATA, and tells you everything that we do.
Awesome. And if you want to find me, you can go on Twitter and Instagram, IffyWadiWay. If y'all enjoyed this, make sure you subscribe to Gamma Ray, like, and comment below. Tell us what fight scenes you'd like us to break down. All right, I'll see y'all next week where we'll be covering Mulan. Oh yeah.